You're listening to the Options Insider Radio Network, the home of the Options Podcast. For more quality options programs, visit theoptionsinsider.com or search for Options Insider Radio Network in your podcast provider of choice. Listeners can also access all of our programming through our mobile app available in the iTunes and Google Play stores. Select programs are also available via live stream at mixlr.com/options-insider. That's mixlr.com/options-insider. Don't forget to follow along with your favorite programs and submit your own questions for the hosts at twitter.com/options, stocktwits.com/options, facebook.com/theoptionsinsider, or via questions at theoptionsinsider.com. Welcome to Volatility Views, the premier program for volatility traders. Each week, we'll take a deep dive into the world of volatility with in-depth analysis, trading activity reviews, strategy breakdowns, cutting-edge education, and much more. We'll also bring you exclusive conversations with the traders, researchers, and asset managers who are reshaping the volatility landscape. If it involves volatility, then you'll find it on Volatility Views. Volatility Views is brought to you by MIAX, one of the fastest, most efficient trading platforms in the world. MIAX is proud to bring you Spikes Volatility products. Spikes options and futures are traded on the Spikes Volatility Index, Spike, offering pinpoint accuracy, radically faster dissemination, and a highly transparent settlement auction, all for ultra-low exchange fees. It's volatility reimagined. Learn more about Spikes at myaxoptions.com/spikes. Options and futures involve risk and are not suitable for all investors. The statements made are provided for informational purposes only and should not be relied on for financial or legal advice. Volatility Views is also brought to you by Matrix Executions, LLC, an agency broker-dealer focused on best execution and trading workflow automation. A technology-driven firm, Matrix is led by trading pioneers with decades of experience designing and building best-in-class solutions for options markets. Matrix connects to all domestic exchange venues and multiple international exchanges and serves both institutional and individual clients. For more information on Matrix Executions, LLC, please visit matrixexecutions.com. And now, it's time to take a deep dive into the world of volatility. It's time for Volatility Views.
All right, everybody. That music means we're back for Volatility Views, the premier program for volatility traders. My name is Mark Longo from theoptionsinsider.com. So, of course, from the ever-compelling Options Insider Radio Network. Glad so many of you have decided to join us out there in the land of the plus and the pro. If you want to learn more, see what the heck we're talking about, see what's going on. This was a crazy week out there. Double pro week, double pro Q&As, all sorts of other fun stuff. Options oddities. At the end of the week, you guys are getting early sneak previews of some of the other shows, getting them out way before the rest of the network, stuff like Boot Camp and OPR and everything else, hitting that pro feed early as well. So all sorts of cool stuff. You know where to go. theoptionsinsider.com/plus or /pro, depending on what floats your boat. Also, a new app out there. The Castos folks have launched a new app, so we're going to put that out there for you guys as well. So if you want to get it directly, have your own special app to access the private podcast feed, you're going to have that as well. So all sorts of good stuff. You know where to go. theoptionsinsider.com/plus or /pro. Just go to /shop. Has both of them there. You could compare and contrast till your heart's content. However, you listen live after the fact, keep hitting us up, those questions, those comments. If you like what you hear, keep rating and reviewing in your store of choice. It really does help all the new folks out there who are saying to themselves, man, this vol thing is kind of weird. Let's work through it together. That's what Volatility Views is for. And speaking of together, I'm joined once again on the old Volatility Views program by my volatility compatriots, my partner in crime, the rock lobster himself, Mr. Andrew GIOVINAZZI from OptionPit.com. Mr. G, welcome back to the land of volatility viewing, sir.
It's good to be back here. I just want you to know I'm giving up a lovely swim right now. All my kids are in the water, and they kind of made fun of me for not swimming. They're like, "What do you got to do?" I gotta go do this ball view show for Option Insider Radio on Friday.
I too gave up a swim in the beautiful and lovely Chicago River right outside our window here, but I decided against it because I did not want to die. So there we go.
I was about to say, what color is the river today? Is it green?
It is blood
blue?
red.
Is it yellow?
It's not quite as warm as the mud flats outside of scenic Maine. Nothing better than swimming in the mud as we keep on rolling right on into the Volatility Review.
It's time to break down the latest developments in the volatility trading world. It's time for the Volatility Review.
All right, everybody, let's do it. Let's review some volatility the week that was and indeed still is on our trading screens. And, you know, if you were worried, if you were doing a little hand-wringing earlier this week because, man, things got a little juicy, a little frothy. Well, don't you worry, because the markets have decided to rectify all your concerns. Coming into our final trading day of the week here, we're seeing all the markets firmly in the green. S&P up pretty much 1%. NASDAQ up a similar percentage, right around about 0.9%. The Dow, the laggard of the bunch, up about 0.2%, but all of them firmly in the green yet again. So pretty much all getting back what they lost on Monday and then some. So Vol kind of went on a journey over the course of the last week. If you recall what I was thinking last show, I was thinking, I think we're going to have some turbulence, but we're going to end up pretty close to where we are right now. And where was I at the, let's see, I was at a 1675, which was looking pretty much bullseye at the start of the show. We have since drifted a wee bit, trying to make the Rock Lobster feel competitive, because he was a little bit higher. He was at, where was he? He was at a 1795. So, I didn't want him to feel like he was too out of it at the start of the show. So now we're kind of splitting the uprights here. Coming into showtime, we had spikes at about a 17 even. That's up about 0.75 of a point from where it was last week. And in the interim there on Monday, I got up to as high as a little bit north of 24, about 24.12 in spikes land. We had VIX coming into start of the showtime right around a 1740, 1745. That puts it up just slightly from where it was this time last show, up about 0.15 from where it was this time last week. But other than that, it's kind of vacillating around. It's anyone's ball game here now. Could drift back down to me. It could rally up a little bit to the Rock Lobster. I'm going to guess probably no on that front. But hey, again, we don't want him to take umbrage this early, listeners, because if I say he's not going to win, he's going to storm off in a huff, and it's going to be a whole scene. So let's just avoid the drama. These Mainers, they're known for their drama. VVIX right now at about a 115. That's down 8 points from where it was this time last week. And it got north of 140. Let's see how high VVIX actually got. I know it got up to about 143, as I recall. Let's see. How high do we get in the land of VVIX? Yeah, 146.32. That was the high out there. So Vol got pretty frothy. And it's still pretty frothy, even if it is coming off that elevated level from earlier this week. All right, Mr. Rock Lobster, I know you were pretty bummed right before the show started because it didn't seem like you were going to really be competitive this week. But now the Vol gods have sprinkled a little pixie dust on you, a little bit of favor on you. Are you feeling a little bit better now, sir?
I am feeling a little bit better. I was feeling really good last night into the close. We were looking a solid, very close to 18. And now we're kind of just hovering there. There's actually a lot of action on there. You got some. I like it that the listeners are playing the game. We got some solid numbers for some listeners. We'll keep those to the end of the show. But all I can say is that Matt McFarland guy, he's like way. We crushed that.
He probably will not win. No,
he is not going to win. He's going to have to hang his head in ignominy.
What would it take for VIX to hit a 15 handle before the end of the day? That would be an impressive. I'm not sure if I've seen a vol erosion on that scale by just a half a session.
That would be a powerful weekend. I think. Let's see, how many puts would I'd probably be able to sell 50 put. That'd probably be worth $8,000 for me. So I'm just going to say it ain't happening. As much as I want it to happen, I don't think it will happen.
If you want to hear Andrew retire mid-episode, then yes, by all means, 15 handle.
I will definitely just walk away from the show at quarter of and declare victory if we have a 15 handle.
If we hear dead air for the second half of the show, we know what happened. The Rock Lobster has retired, and his 15 handle
just for the week.
Just for the week.
You're only as good as your last trade. So very interesting. I'm just writing some of the the newsletters we're putting out at Option Pit. By the way, shameless plug. We have a lot of great free newsletters that our students and clients love. They're pretty fantastic, actually. Anyway, besides that, the VVIX, so again, more of the weirdness, right? SPX busting through 4,400. Actually, it was just a subject in our chat room today. Buying. I erred on the side of waiting until Monday to buy a SPY strangle because the vol is just like crazy low considering every major tech company is going to report on Tuesday and Wednesday. And you could get a strangle in SPY for next week for Friday expiration down to like $2.50. I might end up buying it today if they keep crushing it. So you have this effect of this like vol smash for the weeklies right now. But the back month vol is not coming in, which is keeping that VIX future premium. We'll probably hit that another part of the show relatively high. And VVIX as well, just not it's not that massive influx of vol sellers. So I think VVIX over 100 is always, I would just call it, it's not, Mark would probably pitch the yellow light at Option Pit, or kind of like we have a little stoplight system. 100 VVIX over 110, I'd say is still like, there's still some lingering issues out there. So like, once again, we're making an all-time high, I believe. And vol has a tepid response. So you don't have that committed put seller, in the big SPX products. And I think that's where we are right now. And considering like how good the earnings were for social media, like it's clear that they are just, Twitter reported well, and Snap did well. I'm sure Pinterest will report well. By the way, I own all of those. But long time, not like this week long. But like social media has taken over, like all the advertising. They're just like, I swear to gosh, it feels like this COVID thing for right now, all the oxygen sometimes that you feel they just take all the oxygen out of the equity investing space sometimes. And at least today, that's what it feels like. So, Google's running 3%, with earnings next week, and they're just going totally, people are going nuts. So the YOLO folks have found new stocks, and right now it is social media stuff they hate. They hate anything related to the COVID recovery trade, like all the cruise lines, travel, leisure, all that stuff, bang, bang, bang. So if you want your bargains, they're still there. They really haven't recovered from Friday. They made a little bit of a bounce up, but they haven't really started. Like I thought I would have seen a little bit of a takeoff. So this Delta variant thing, the press just won't leave it alone, even though it's really not causing any problems. It's certainly no worse than what we had before. And I don't know. So, but the press won't leave it alone. So I think the algos read all that stuff and they just pound all those other stocks. So what looks good? Anything related to social media. And that's, I think, why like we're not getting that, that's not, we're not getting the wall coming in. It's just such a, it's kind of just a one-way train here at this point, at least today.
It is a one-way train, and we got listeners already declaring victory. We got Nichols says he's going to win this week. Where was Nichols? Look at Nichols. Nichols scumbagged me. Nichols scumbagged me by a tenth. He's at 1665. Well, I hope we get exactly at 1675, where I predicted first, Mr. Nichols, and then Nana Boo Boo to you. And listeners coming in and but they're learning from the Rock Lobster. They're learning from you, sir. They come in and they scumbag me. Are you proud of yourself, sir? What you've taught these people?
Hey, listen, teaching students in a pit to scum when I was floor trader and teaching floor traders, perfectly acceptable behavior. You just have to scum them before they scum you, and that's the way it was. And you know what it is. You know what it is. You scum people, but you try to pretend that you don't. You put it in this veil of beneficence as the grand dictator of your own radio conglomerate. But you say, I'll let you go first. I'll let you go first, and then I'll decide. But of course, what you're really saying is, I want you to put a bid out there so I can just stand in front of it by 20 cents.
You know, lately,
actually
I've been so confident in my skills. I let people choose. I let you choose whether you want to go first or last. And you still have umbrage. So I can't win. I let you choose. Then you say, I chose to go first. There's a lot of revisionist history going on here. Listen, I'd say just check the tape. Good thing all of these things are recorded for posterity as we keep on rolling here. Let's go on out to the land of the futures. Spikes Futures, they were just on. Matt was just on last week talking about that incentive program. We had Simon Ho, the Spikes father himself, on one of our pro Q&As earlier this week. Both of them reporting that those incentives do seem to be driving up the volume out there in Spikes Futures, which is good because that's kind of the kickoff point. That's the match. That's the catalyst that will really start kicking off some more options paper out there in the land of Spikes options. In terms of VIX Futures, we have July rolling off the board, of course, this week. And the AUG future, kind of like reflecting what we talked about in VIX Cash, not a heck of a lot going on in the AUG or the SEP future. They're both pretty much about where they were this time last week. I think the AUG future, is up about 1/10 of a point, which I think was exactly how much it was up the week before. And the SEP future up about 0.15 points. So both of them kind of hanging out for pretty much the last couple of weeks, at least net show to show here. So not a lot of evolution in the land of the vol futures. Anything catching your eye out there this week, Mr. Rock Lobster?
Just the persistent pattern. It just doesn't go away. I'm looking at our option pit indicator, and I described in our vol trade club this week. I expected that vol premium to drive higher in the VIX futures because of earnings are coming out. The earnings have been good, as I've said before, so it's kind of driving the short-term vol down. The back month vol is not going down. That makes the VIX futures rise because all the relative prices in SPX, the vols look up relative from forward volume point of view and forward vol point of view. So those, like the premiums are getting okay, you've got August futures $3 over VIX. That is hefty premium. For this cycle, it's all of this stuff is just juicy. So, but you're not seeing that relief, any real relief in cash VIX. So again, I think we could see very low prices in this cycle for VXX. Just on a decay basis alone, to give the viewers, listeners some ideas. Decay alone for August cycle VXX theoretical price 25.75 on August expiration for VIX. UVXY theoretical low 22.16 on a decay basis. So again, huge premiums. And it's a little bit because of the weekend. VIX is down about 40 cents today, 50 cents today, and it'll mark back up. But still, you're looking at a dollar a week plus in real erosion for the vol products. So huge numbers, which make very interesting trades 30 days out. And this premium persistence, I think we've talked about it all year, right? We've talked about it in January. Remember what was insane? I think Don Schlesinger came on and talked about the low realized vol and just the very high relative future premiums. We saw it absolutely insane at $7 or $8 over into that volpocalypse, or not volpocalypse. It was the techpocalypse when the whale jumped in and jumped out prior to the election. You had all those functions there. The vol went sky high into the election. Everybody thinking all kinds of things are going to happen, and ultimately, surprise, it wasn't really much of anything. And just this persistent vol with the COVID doesn't go away. We have all these little fixes here and fixes there, but the press does not let it go, and the vol premium stays. So I think again, this is probably in one of the longer vol cycles, vol events that I can remember. I think it's the financial crisis started, it was probably about, it bottomed, I'm going to say that was 9 months. I think we're well a year into this. and we still have not seen zone 1. I am trying to remember the last time. I'm sure Russell Rhodes has an answer for that. But at this point, this is a pretty long time being in this vol cycle. So again, I think 16 is the new 12. It feels like right now still. I don't think that's going to change very much. And you can, for the listeners, you want to see how they're handicapping it. Look at the price of the 17 put in VIX. It's like 50 cents, right? And you could buy a jillion of them right now if you wanted to, I think. Last time I looked, August cycle 17 puts are 35.45. You have all you can eat at 40 cents, I think, if you really stuck a bit out there. So they're the short-term vol of all, like they're like VXX, like next week's VXX, I think is extremely low relative. They're just crushing it. And I think it's a good opportunity, a good buying opportunity, to be honest. But for all of that, I mean, we'll see. We'll see what happens. But you have like the crazy future premium overhanging in the back, and the liquidity providers can let that front month vol just fall because there's clearly no buyers of like what I would call more gamma intensive options. And I think that's why we have what we have right now. So, and we've been looking at it for well over a year. It hasn't changed. And I thought, what did I say? I think my old guess was, you'll be able to get a haircut. When you can get a haircut again, VIX would be 16. And I can't even tell you what it would take for VIX to go 12 again. I would have to guess right now that we'd have to see a vaccine that's an actual vaccine, meaning when you get the shot, you can't get COVID-19. And I probably don't think we'll even see one of those because these influenzas are so hard to have an all-in vaccine on. So the market at some point will have to get used to this, but it's still not. So that is a very long diatribe on those futures, but I don't see that changing. And early in the cycle, I thought this was all crap, and I used to buy a lot of 16 puts and watch them go out worthless. I think they paid once in 12 months. And what's funny is I'm like barely interested in the 17 handle at this point. So that gives you an idea what the floor I see for vol. But it could change. It certainly could change. But for right now, I think the big catalyst too next week is Tuesday, Wednesday. You have basically 25% of the market cap is having earnings in one day or 2 days. All the big tech companies are having earnings. If they're great, or if they're not a huge surprise, I think we'll see if the vol can even come down on news like that. So, that's where we are. It's a much, when you don't have the big ranges in VIX on the downside, it's a much tougher trade, I think. And I think that's where we find ourselves right now.
Indeed, sir. Let's see what we're finding out there in the options front. And I guess, another day of extended rally. Folks are kind of like, just shrugging their shoulders because it ain't a heck of a lot lighting it up on the volatility options front today, listeners. Let's start out there in the land of spikes options where we usually do. And remember, there were some size positions on going into expiration this week here. We had the 18-16 put spread on for 1,000, as well as the 22-30 vertical with that weird 50 strike kicker against all of that on for 1,000. All of that now going the way of the dodo, waiting to see if these new futures incentives will drive some new paper to replace it. Again, not a heck of a lot going on anywhere right now. Looks like the biggest trade out there today is a 60 double put spread in August, 60.55. I don't know why someone's trading that, but hey, c'est la vie. Doing it for nearly $5, $4.90. So there you go. That's an intriguing trade, but hey, c'est la vie. We'll see by this time next week if some of those incentives start kicking in on the options front. And not a heck of a lot more really going on out there in the land of VIX. In fact, I had to check to make sure I hadn't typed in, let's say, VXX or something else by mistake, because only 90,000 contracts on the tape in VIX land. 90,000 contracts on the tape. That said, the ADV has ticked up probably going to happen when we see one of those rock'em sock'em robots day like Monday. Remember, we were threatening to break 400K recently. Going back up now, up to 473, up about 53,000. That's probably going to come back in after today's anemic paper, unless we get a big volume shot in the arm before the end of the day here. Let's break down some of the top positions out here in VIX land. It's back to calls leading the dance in the top 10, 60-40 calls over puts. So read into that what you will. Number 10, it costs you $118,000 to break into the top 10 in VIX right now, which isn't a ton. That gets you to the AUG 50s, the 50 strike. Seems to have some fascination in both VIX and spikes. That is intriguing. Number 9, $122 of the SEP 40s. Number 8, $128,000 of our first of 4 puts. In the top 10 is the AUG 20 puts. Number 7, $129 of the SEP 30s. Number 6, $130,000 of the October 17 puts. Number 5, $140 of the SEP 35 calls. Number 4, $160 of the AUG 16 puts. Number 3, our final put in the top 10, $166 of the AUG 17 puts. Numero dos here, $191,000 of the NOV 60s. And number 1, a different strike for the first time in quite some time. It's the SEP 25s, $207,000. Now that strike does sound kind of familiar. Maybe we'll get to that in a little bit. Total of 6.3 million contracts open, about 4.25 on the calls and about 2.05 on the puts. Obviously, expiration took a lot of OI with it, and not a lot to replace it today. 90,000 contracts on the tape today. I had to check this twice to make sure this was not something incorrect here, because the most active contract today are the SEP 70s, 7-0, doing a whopping 9,500. There is nothing going up out there today, listeners. Followed by number 2, the AUG 23s. 9,200. I hope that's not a spread. That would be a strange spread if that was a spread. Number 3, AUG 22 puts, 7,500. Number 4, the AUG 20 calls, 6,500. And rounding out the top 5 here today on an anemic day, 4,700 of the AUG 20 puts. Yesterday, a wee bit more paper, 307,000 contracts on the tape. The AUG 16 puts were the most active thing out there with about 32,000, followed by the AUG 17 puts, 22,000. Number 3 was the AUG 20 puts, 17K. Number 4, AUG 32 halves, 15,000, and rounding out the top 5 yesterday, the October 20 puts with about 15,000, almost exactly. Wednesday, even more anemic, 253,000, so barely over a quarter million. On Wednesday, the most active contract out there, the AUG 17 puts, 38, almost 39,000 of those, followed by the AUG 15 puts. Number 2 dropped down quite a bit to 12,000. Number 3, the AUG 25 calls, 10,600. Number 4, the AUG 20 puts, 10,200, and rounding out the top 5 on another anemic day, 9,700 of the October 26s. Interesting. Tuesday, now we're talking about some paper. 934,000 contracts on the tape. The most active contract. Yes, they finally came back for them, listeners, on the last day that they could possibly do so. They finally came back for the July 25s. Remember that July 25 40 call spread has kind of dominated our VIX OI for months. They put it on back on April 8th. $2 they paid for that thing 200,000 times. So in case you're wondering, that's about $40 million they spent. So this was not just a mere shrug of this. This is not, I got a whim on VIX. This was a size position obviously done against something else, probably in the aggressively short vol range. And this thing, as we've talked about many times, has been open. They've had many opportunities over the course of the lifespan of that trade to at least pare it down, at least scratch some of, or, at least mitigate some of their losses on this thing. Just a couple of weeks ago, that spread was looking decent. So the 25 calls got up to about $1.25. As the Rock Lobster knows, because he actually traded this thing, the spread, he said, got up to about 80 cents. So that was still not nothing. That's all. You've gotten almost half your money back on this spread. And it looks like they finally came to dump the 25s this week, listeners. Right before expiration, they dumped a whole bunch. Not all of them, though. 118,000 of the July 25s went up on Wednesday. They got prices, looks like, ranging from 12.5 cents all the way up to actually some small 2,300 and 1,600 at like 55 and 65 cents. So The latter ones were actually pretty good. I don't know how they got those. Those are right on the open, I think, and then they kind of just crushed the bid from there. Most of them were around the 20 to 30 cent range. So let's just assume they got them off for, let's just say, let's be generous. Let's say they got them for 30 cents. If they did, they got back about $3 million on this trade. So yeah, they lost still $37 million, roughly ballpark, on the trade. Also worth noting, there were still quite a few open, over 100,000, 169,000 open on this strike. I know the OI grew over time, whether it was the same person buying more of the 25s or whether this just, sometimes a size position attracts other players. It's like, the lamprey is going out to the shark when it goes by. They see something big, they want to attach themselves to it. So could be a little bit of that. But for whatever reason, 169,000 of these things went out worthless. So this person didn't even do the full 200,000 if it was them. So yeah, this was a weird one. And then let's go out to Monday. Monday was the big dog day. 1.57 million. That was, of course, the sell-off, the big shock to the system, the big spike in volatility. The most active contract that day, 151,000 of the July 25. So maybe they got more of them off. Let's hope they got more of them off the day before as well. Let's see. Hopefully they weren't adding to that 25 position. I'll have to go look and see what prices they got on that Monday. And then also the 30s went up as well, 71,000 times. 55,000 of the SEP 42 halves, number 4, 55,000 as well of the SEP 50s. So it seems like a bit of a vertical, SEP 42 half, 50 vertical. And rounding out the top 5 on an active Monday, well north of 1 million contracts, we have the July 20 calls with about 52,000. All right, that's a lot to unpack at the beginning of the week, not so much at the end of the week, Mr. Rock Lobster. Anything catching your eye? And what are your thoughts on the long, sordid saga of that July 25-40, sir?
Yeah, interesting on that one. I saw those. The spread Monday probably got to, and I was greedy. I didn't close. I only had a few contracts left, and they're mostly paid for, and I didn't close them. I thought foolishly, there I went thinking again, that we would see some follow through the next day. We did not. I think they probably, those spreads got to like 180 or 190 top price on them on, and I think that's what the holder, like they were looking for like maxi protection on that. So clearly they're not in that trade just to make or break even, because they were, the only thing I think it was they're looking for big money. And they didn't get it. So I think what do they got? They got out of basically a dime. They took a dime or something like that. And of course, every liquidity provider in the world is happy to buy them back for a dime at that point. As far as that goes, I just think it was and it looks like from your volume report, they might be looking at the September contract now for a little bit of that volume. So I find that interesting. And I'm thinking, I thought this could be 50 Cent, but I don't think this is his MO. But holding it until the last minute is his MO, as far as I recall. So, but they're spending a lot of money. What did he make on that one? I'm still trying to remember. Paid 48 cents and he sold them at $48 or $50 or something like that.
That was a pretty good one. That one worked.
It was like $500 million or something, or something like that. It was a pretty substantial amount of money. Maybe they're trying it again. And I think the 25-40, like the spread, is a good idea. It certainly cuts the cost way, way down in the trade. And I think, to be honest, like those SEP contracts, you would think you could pay for them with a vol put, actually, by buying a vol put. In the old days, buying the vol put was better than selling it, because there was always that chance you had to run to 13 or 12, which made selling like a 14 or 15 put difficult for financing a trade. Right now, I would say that maybe isn't the worst way to go. But I look at that volume, and there's still buyers. There's still buyers out there, but if you look at kind of vol today in VIX, it is dropping a little bit. Basically, all the puts are on a giveaway. You could buy all the puts you want for the 17 handle, I think, right now. And there is some pretty big open interest, but there's just there is not a lot of play in the August cycle. At least you would think with the market at all-time highs and stuff like that, 4,400, there would be more. But, all I can say is I think people are looking at this number and they're like, okay, 4,500, that's the next one. When do we get there?
Yeah, I'm looking here at Monday's paper as well. It's like we said, a bunch of the 25s traded, 151,000 of the 25s traded on Monday as well. And they went off for a little bit more attractive prices. They actually got some blocks off for 80 odd cents, 67.5 cents here, 80 cents. So 82.5. They actually got someone got 10,000 off for 90 cents. So let's be charitable. Let's assume that was the same guy. He sold all 150,000 of them at, let's say, around 80 cents. So that's not bad. That's talking around, $12 million at that point. So you got 12 million plus we said the kind of anemic 3 or so they picked up the other day. So if it was all them, and it probably wasn't, you're talking maybe 15 million back on that 40 million investment. So you still dropped $25 million on your quote unquote hedge. So hopefully the hedge did what you wanted. Obviously vol came in over that period. So hopefully you profited a whole freaking bunch from that vol. And of course, if you got this size short vol position on, you'd hope that a spike at the very end of the life of that trade doesn't undo everything that you had there. For April 8th was when they put that trade on. So they had it on for 3 months and change out here. So interesting stuff. You're right. It's positioning now on the SEP 25s. I'll have to dig into more of those, but it does seem highly coincidental that the July 25s go off the board and then the SEP 25s take over. So I gotta wonder if it's not the same person out there playing, and it seems like it probably is. Speaking of playing, let's see who's playing out there in VXX land today. VXX coming into Showtime is at about exactly a 30. That's up about half a point. Let's see where it's hanging out right now, if it has evolved a little bit since 30, actually ticking up a little bit. So up about 0.8 of a point now. Decent, actually, volume out there today. 183,000, the ADV, 220,000 out there. That's up about 11,000 from last week. In terms of the top positions, we still got some legacy VXX1 hanging out there. So let's see. Let's just do a top 5 again. Number 5, 21,000 of the SEP 14s again. VXX1 there. Number 2, 23,000 of the SEP 9 puts. Same deal. Number 3, now we get back to actual good old real American VXX. 24,000 of the AUG 28 puts. Number 2, 27, almost 28,000 of the AUG 25 puts. And number 1 still out there are the SEP 10s from the old VXX1, 32,500 of those bad boys. In terms of the top trades out there in VXX land out there today, let's see what they are. Let's break them down live right now. Number 1, we got 24,000 of the July 29 half puts. Those are going out today, followed by 13, almost 14,000 of the July 30 puts, also going out today. Number 3, 13,000 of the July 28 puts going out next week. Number 4, 5,600 of the July 30 calls going out today. And rounding out the top 5 in VXX today, 5,500 of the July 30 half puts also going the way of the dodo today. Mr. Rock Lobster, anything lighting up your tape out there in the land of VXX this week, sir?
What I just, as far as a trade goes, just how low the vol went. Individual contracts, I didn't see like a bunch that was firing off. In VXX this week, because I mean, all the action was at the beginning of the week, where there was there was a little bit of early action in like the 30, like 32, 33. I actually did see kind of a funky one of my students brought up to me when it was VXX was at the peak. It appeared somebody bought I think was August 13 or August 6. 40 straddle for $11. And that was one thing that sort of was an interesting trade. It's about even at this point. I was wondering if it's a potential like put in stock kind of deal where they buy the in the money straddle and then VXX goes down and then they start buying some of the stock. But you look at it and vol in here is coming in pretty substantially. It was pretty high most of the week in VXX. So I would say the biggest thing was just kind of the vol collapse after we had that move up to how high do we get? Like 37, I think, VXX, something like that, or 35. I got to take a look. Yep, it was 37. And then I think we retraced almost the entire move. Let's see, on the 16th, yeah. On the 16th, we closed like 30 and a half-ish, something like that. And we are now, oh my gosh. So the entire week for VXX, we have a dime difference from last Friday. So put that in your volatility calculators and figure that one out. As a VIX went to 25, it's come back to 17, and VXX is roughly unchanged from last Friday. So with, I would say, slightly higher vol. So again, interesting. I'd say it's interesting trade for VXX. It does not surprise me because that's the nature of the product. And I would say vol and volatility is about the same. It's maybe even a little lower. And I think, to be honest, if there's going to be any fireworks, it will be next week. And I think next week's VXX options are underpriced personally, given the magnitude of the earnings announcements coming out and how that could push vol around. So I just think the market's being pulled in like so many different directions with news and COVID and all the rest of it. And it manifests itself in these here vol products. So I didn't see, except for like that action early on and then some put buying in VXX, it's pretty much settled down as the volatility is just caved in VXX. It's dropped like 40 points from the peak on Monday. So, usually like sometimes the vol products, the vol compression is so big, it just annihilates put premium that you purchase when VXX doesn't go down fast enough. So for all the listeners out there, sometimes like ratio spreads and flies and stuff like that on the downside actually might be a little better performers when the vol's high. So take that information and do with it what you will.
We shall do quite a bit with it, including roll on into UVXY, a product that seems to want to just mock me today, flirting with my levels and retreating, then flirting with my levels and retreating again here. But coming into this part of the show, we're at about a 28.5 or so out there in UVXY. It's actually up about 0.75 of a point from this time last week. It actually was with a 27 handle earlier this morning, but getting some juice back as the as the broad markets rally. UVXY seeming to want to move with them today. ADV out there, about 126,000. It's up about 6,000 from last show. Today, actually decent paper on the tape, 86,000. So UVXY is, well, it's not quite threatening VXX, but at least it's not quite as far distant in the rearview mirror as it used to be. The top trade out there, let's do top positions first. Let's do a top 5 because these are much smaller in UVXY. And the number 5, 7,300 of the pre-split adjusted SEP 5s. Number 4, 7,800 of the July 60s. Interesting. Number 3, 8,300 of the July 27 puts. All these are going out today. Number 2, 9,400 of the July 70s. These are going out next week. Yeah, the 70s by next week. That would be interesting. And number 1 position out there, UVXY1, about 10,000 of the Jan 1.0 puts out there. Total of 633,000 contracts open in UVXY right now. Mr. Rock Lobster, I know you prefer UVXY to VXX. This week, neither one of them really playing ball. What's lighting up your tape and the tape of the crazies in UVXY, sir?
A lot of like 29, 28 puts, stuff like that, where there looked like there could be some interesting action for this week. But again, you had not a lot of the vol products became very unimpressive over the last 3 days, considering UVXY range was barely $2, considering where vol was and how dramatic the drop was from almost 39. It literally had a 2-day trip, and then it spent 3 days going nowhere. So I think that's sort of the bigger surprise and mystery was just how underwhelming performance UVXY is if you look at it. 2, UVXY is in the same place that it was 1 month ago. So, like, that's how the product does its thing. But from a volume point of view, you're trying to scoop some cheap puts, and you just didn't get any action. There's a lot of action in just downside, like 28s, 28.5s, 29s for next week. Those could be interesting, but again, still, there's a lot of potential decay in there. The 28.5 puts. So you could pay the price for the 28.5 puts, and theoretically, it can decay all the way down to worth more than what you paid for the puts right now. So that's kind of in the sweet spot of where I find the products super inexpensive, like UVXY decaying almost 40 cents a day. That's almost $2 for next week. So that would take you down to 26.75, and the 28.5 puts are only $1.60. So very, very cheap shots for downside, I think. And there is some paper now starting to buy some of those, like 27s, 26s, stuff like that, looking for the potential that low vol, if we can kind of break this cycle and actually print 16 or a little farther below. But I think that's kind of the story. You got kind of low vol. There's a lot less interest in the upside. There might be some people trying to YOLO UVXY up, but it is sure a tough product to look for a bounce when you have this much future when the August future is $3 over cash. You do need quite a bit of giddy up to make UVXY move on the upside.
Well, it's getting that giddy up today, sir, just enough to mock my orders. So I got to sell my puts from this week before I go buying any more for next week. I got to do my business there first. Let's go in between vol views and oddities. I got some work to do. All right, let's keep on rolling here. Looking out to the single name volatility, Mr. Rock Lobster keeps talking about it, how there's pretty much 25% of the market cap on the docket next week. Well, we had some big names popping off this week as well. Had Beamer on Monday, Ally Invest, Netflix, United Airlines, and Chipotle on Tuesday. Wednesday, we had Coke and J&J. Thursday, AT&T, American Airlines, Southwest Airlines, who I'll be flying in, I think, about a little over 24 hours out there. So crazy. Back on an airplane. I'll let you know how if I survive. I think I will. Crocs, Intel, Snap, and Twitter on Thursday, Friday, Amex, and Honeywell. Let's look at some. We finally got the hot off the presses earnings move results reports from Matt and his team over there at ORATS. Las Vegas Sands, remember we talked about them yesterday on the Option Block, listeners. They were moving and shaking. They popped off on the 21st after the bell, so the day before, Wednesday. And they were at 49.5 going into their announcement. They were pricing in 4.6%, and they delivered close. They came close, 4.1%. So that's something. Most names don't come close these days. And then we got also Southwest. They were on the 22nd, so yesterday before the bell. They were at 53.13 going into their announcement. They were pricing in 3.5%. They delivered 3.1%. So another one. Got at least somewhat close. And yesterday before the bell as well, we also had American Airlines. This one, not so close. They were at 21.40 as of their announcement, and they were pricing in 4.5%. They delivered 1.3%. So nothing really on the American Airlines front. All that nothing leading to, at least so far, this being a very blood red start to earnings season. We're averaging out right now, listeners, at 60%. So if you bought a basket of all these earnings, you got 60 cents back on the dollar. Week one was about 80%, and we're looking at around, not even 60, 54% coming in here for this week so far. So not looking bueno. We shall see. Next week is a big week. We shall see what we have. Let's look at a couple here really quickly. Let's go down to next week. We got Tesla after the bell on the 26th. 655 and a quarter is where it was as of this report. They were pricing in $43.76. In the past, they've moved nearly 48. So a little bit less vol in Tesla, but again, less vol has been the winner of late. Apple, name you may have heard of, after the bell on the 27th. They're at 145 and about a half as of this report. They were pricing in 6 and a quarter. In the past, they've moved 6 and a quarter. So intriguing. Maybe someone getting the memo out there. If they had, maybe they would have made it, 575 or something as opposed to 6 and a quarter. But hey, who am I to argue out here? Next up, we got Google on the 27th. They were at a whopping 26.52 as of this report. They were pricing in 95.75. In the past, they moved 117. So a wee bit light on the vol front. That seems to be the right direction. Microsoft on the 27th after the bell as well. 281 and about a half they were as of this report. They're pricing in 878. In the past, they've moved 729. Oh, extra juice in good old Softy. What is behind that? That's intriguing. Is it maybe some of the gaming vol seeping in there? They have spent a lot of money to build out their gaming sector of late, acquiring a lot of studios and everything else. Maybe something else afoot. This new virtual windows they're trying to sell. Who knows what's driving that juice? But a lot of juice in Softy land. Good old S-Bucks as well, also on the 27th after the bell. They're at 119 and a quarter as of this report. They were pricing in 417. In the past, they've moved 437. So they've got the memo at least out there. We got a couple more here. Let's go to Mickey D's. They're on the 28th before the bell. 235.93. They were pricing in, wow, 6 and a quarter. In the past, they've moved 4 and a quarter. Wow, $2 extra worth of juice. You don't see that much anymore. That is interesting. That's probably merits further analysis out here, because anyone who's bidding up that much extra juice in this environment, that's either a recipe for disaster or perhaps they have some intriguing insight here. Let's look really. Oh, Ford. Everyone's loving Ford these days. Ford, they're on the 28th after the bell. 14.19 is where they were as of this report. They were pricing in 65 cents. In the past, they've moved, get this, 57 cents. So not a lot of action out there in Ford. Facebook, 28th after the bell as well. 346 and a quarter. They were pricing in $18.15. In the past, they've moved $17.51. So a little bit of extra juice in Facebook. That's intriguing. Then again, they seem to be kind of target numero uno for all the regulators out there around the globe. So maybe that's leading to some of that. Let's roll it out here on the Amazonians here. 358, 35.85. Easy for me to say. They were pricing in 144 and a quarter. In the past, they've moved 134.85. So wow, a lot of extra juice there for ye old Amazonian. I lied. One more. WWE. They're on the 29th after the bell. Uncle Mike would love this one. 49 and about a half as of this report. They're pricing in 356. In the past, they've moved 381. So a little bit less juice seems to be the order of the day. Seems like they retreated a bit as well. They were threatening that 60 handle not too long ago on rumors of that acquisition. Apparently, that's no longer the case as we keep on rolling, listeners, into the crystal ball.
It's time to peer into the future and reveal what the volatility gods hold in store. It's time to look into the crystal ball.
All right, everybody, let's do it. Crystal ball time, the time a lot of you have been waiting for. As Rock Lobster said, nice to see so many more people playing on the old crystal ball game. So you get a sense, you get a feel for what it's like. It's not just me and the Rock Lobster hanging ourselves out to dry out here. You folks get to play as well. It's like we're at about a 17 and a quarter out there in VIX land. Spikes at about almost exactly a 17 out there right now. So that is looking like winner chicken dinner for me out there. Yeah, 1675. So nana boo boo to you, Nichols, scumming me in the wrong direction. 1665. Ha! Take that. If he had gone 1685, you might be dancing right now. So I'm going to take the victory of the actual people on the show guessing. Mr. Rock Lobster, you were at a nowhere near close, in hindsight, pretty darn embarrassing 1785. And Mr. McFarlane also going for the vol apocalypse here of a 15 and a half handle. Neither of those were ever really in consideration, especially that 1795. I mean, who would have ever thought that? A lot of you folks were playing out there. We got a couple of them in here that were close here. Mr. Unlimited, one of our pro members there, he was at a 1633. Not bad, pretty close. JJ was feeling a lot of upside. He was feeling 1875. No joy for them. A lot of you probably were excited on Monday. Then not so much. Alan, about a point lower than me. He was at a 1572. So no joy for him. Nichols, like I said, scumming me a tenth of a point to the south, 1665. Options queen. I don't. We may have to start bringing her onto the show. Maybe she should just host the show, Mr. Rocklop. She was at a 17. She's almost an exact bullseye against her.
Options queen is, I think she's earned her name. She's earned her nickname.
Maybe 50 Cent is masquerading in our chat room as options queen. What do you think?
Yeah, I think you bring her onto the show. We asked her about being a retail trader. Like, just get her on there. We pepper her with questions. And by the way, you winning by 20 cents or 18 cents, I would not call that a resounding victory, considering here vol is ticking up right into the end of the day.
It's okay. I'll call it that for you. You don't need to say it. I'll say it for you. Resounding victory. There you go.
Well, you know what? There are benefits galore to having your own radio conglomerate. That's all I can say.
I got to say, though, Options Queen getting me, too. She's almost exact bullseye in spikes. She's 0.06 away in spikes and was at about a quarter to a 22/10 of a point away in VIX. So Options Queen, what's your model? Send it to us.
Yeah. She wins.
So I will always doff my cap to the listeners. You know that. To you, not so much. But to the listeners, yes. So, 2 weeks in a row. Wow. Options Queen on fire. Very, very impressive. Start putting your crystal balls together now, listeners, and hit us up for next. Option Queen 2 weeks in a row. Now we got to send her something cool. So we'll work on that with our producers behind the scenes. Options Queen, you earned yourself a fancy prize, maybe some exclusive options insider gear that nobody else can get, but people who are here in the studio working, and of course you, because you're a good vol guesser. All right, Mr. Rock Lobster. Now we know what we must do for next week. We must once again bravely venture forth into the volatility fray and put ourselves out there. So since I was Options Queen, we'll probably send hers in, who knows when. But let's see. If you guys in the chat want to keep sending yours in, go ahead. You guys after the fact can always play as well. I know some of the others like JJ and others can't listen live. I get it. Send them in after the fact as well. We'll put you all in here for some fun. But in general, hey, if you win, like Options Queen, man, blow the doors off. You can get some prizes. In terms of this time next week, what are we feeling? Like Rock Lobster has said 15 times during the show, we got a lot of names popping off next week. So it could be a very different game this time next week. And also, I said COVID's still lingering. I was listening to some stuff before show where we're getting ready and talking about Las Vegas putting up mask mandate again, reinstating that kind of stuff. So we're trending in some weird directions on that front as well. So will that continue to add more juice out there? That is the big question. I'm going to say this time next week, we're going to be, this is challenging because I have many things swirling in my head. I'm going to say this time next Friday. I'm back and forth here. I'm gonna. This is a hard one. Okay, I'm gonna say 16.35. There we go. Bam, 16.35. So about 0.4 of a point lower than I am right now, and almost 2/3 of a point lower than we are right now in vol. Mr. Rock Lobster, what say you for this time next week?
I was saying my number this week is 16.01. 16.01. Because the earnings, I think the tech earnings will be good. The Facebook and our Twitter and Snap kind of showing the way with the revenue. And hopefully people will stop losing their mind about this freaking Delta variant that is it's unbelievable. Like politicians, they just can't get enough of this. But anyway, and then I think and then we will see that 16 handle, 16.01 next week.
Mr. Unlimited, he's learning how to play the game. He says he's waiting for Options Queen to post hers so he can go over or under her by a nickel. He's a smart man. Well done, Mr. Unlimited. He also says he's feeling a lot of vol next week. He says he thinks mask mandates go back into effect. He says he sees a lot of people in his area wearing masks. He's at a 24.5. Wow. I'm going big, he says. Wow. 24.5 listeners. Are you on board with that? I say that, but we did touch that earlier this week. The high of VIX cash on Monday was 24.81. So that isn't as outlandish as maybe it might sound. Just the fact that we're still going to be there at the end of the week is the thing that makes that fascinating and or terrifying. For his prognostication, he may be right. I hope maybe for society, I hope he's not right, because probably that means some bad stuff is afoot. But interesting stuff. If you have your prognostications, hit us up. Let us know as we go around the horn. Mr. Rock Lobster, sir, if folks want to reach out to you, discuss your crystal ball picks or anything else, where should they go? What should they do?
Go to optionbit.com. Go to memberships. You get our Vol Trade Club. Eventually we'll have nice hats and shirts, but right now we're just, trying to make everybody happy. So that's where we are. So check that out, or check out our Trading Legion if you want to get some of that live educational stuff on a daily basis. Come on over, and that's what we do.
Oh, the official pick is in. Options Queen is listening live. She's added 18.25 next week, Mr. Rock Lobster. I don't know. We've learned not to fade Options Queen at this point. 18.25, her inerringly precise model says for next week. So a couple folks leaning on the heavier tip on volatility. Interesting. What do you think, listeners? Hit us up. Let us know. And of course, if you want to check out all things spikes, you know where to go. MyXoptions.com/spikes is the place to go. New futures volume leading into some tighter markets out there on the options. That's encouraging. If you're looking to play, maybe an interesting time to start nibbling away at some of them there spikes options out there as well. Listeners in the chat they say we haven't posted a Twitter poll in a while. You know, you're right. I was thinking about that the other day. We've been so busy doing all the other stuff with the Plus and the Pro and everything and feeding content to all you folks. You're right. We haven't done a fun poll in a while. So maybe we'll need to kick those off again. More questions of the week for you folks. So we shall do that as well. We'll be back in a little bit less than an hour. Rock Lobster joining me as well to dive into the mad world of unusual options activity. Got some good madness for you this week, so stay tuned for that. That's on the pro side, of course, listeners. If you're not pro, you want to learn about it, theoptionsinsider.com/pro is the place to go. You get your Q's and A's, you get your oddities, and a whole bunch more. New app coming for the folks who want to get the pro podcast on a dedicated app. All that good stuff and a whole bunch more. Theoptionsinsider.com/pro is the place to go. On behalf of the Rock Lobster and indeed myself and everybody over there in MyX land, thank all of you for downloading, streaming, and subscribing. See you back here next week for another Volatility Views.
Volatility Views is brought to you by MyX, one of the fastest, most efficient trading platforms in the world. MyX is proud to bring you Spikes Volatility products. Spikes options and futures are traded on the Spikes Volatility Index, Spike, offering pinpoint accuracy, radically faster dissemination, and a highly transparent settlement auction, all for ultra-low exchange fees. It's volatility reimagined. Learn more about spikes at myxoptions.com/spikes. Options and futures involve risk and are not suitable for all investors. The statements made are provided for informational purposes only and should not be relied on for financial or legal advice. Volatility Views is also brought to you by Matrix Executions, LLC, an agency broker-dealer focused on best execution in trading workflow automation. A technology-driven firm, Matrix is led by trading pioneers with decades of experience designing and building best-in-class solutions for options markets. Matrix connects to all domestic exchange venues and multiple international exchanges and serves both institutional and individual clients. For more information on Matrix Executions, LLC, please visit matrixexecutions.com. You're listening to the Options Insider Radio Network, the home of the Options Podcast. For more quality options programs, visit theoptionsinsider.com or search for Options Insider Radio Network in your podcast provider of choice. Listeners can also access all of our programming through our mobile app available in the iTunes and Google Play stores. Select programs are also available via live stream at mixlr.com/options-insider. That's mixlr.com/options-insider. Don't forget to follow along with your favorite programs and submit your own questions for the hosts at twitter.com/options, stocktwits.com/options, facebook.com/theoptionsinsider, or via questions at theoptionsinsider.com.